My name is James Crawford, and for 12 years I have guarded the royal family's darkest secret. What I discovered in the basement of Buckingham Palace will make you question everything you know about the monarchy. 3 months ago, I recorded something impossible. King Charles speaking 9 different languages simultaneously from a single throat. But that was only the beginning. The British royal family is not human, at least not in the sense we understand it. It all began 3 months ago, on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I had been assigned to the palace's audio security department, a department most people didn't even know existed. My job was simple: monitor all audio frequencies in the royal quarters, detect unauthorized recording devices, and ensure the Crown's conversations remained private. I thought I was protecting state secrets. I had no idea I was protecting something far more terrifying. The morning briefing went as usual. Inspector Morrison, a tough man with 30 years of experience, gave me the day's schedule. His Majesty has a private meeting with the Chinese ambassador at 2 p.m., followed by a conference call with Commonwealth leaders at 4 p.m., he said, his old hands handing me the list of audio monitoring devices. As always, Crawford. Record. Her Majesty's voice analyze it and scan the frequencies for any anomalies. Be extra vigilant today. We've detected some unexpected anomalies in the sound spectrum lately. The hesitation in Morrison's voice caught my attention. In 12 years, this man had never hesitated. What kind of anomalies, sir? He looked away at that moment. Probably equipment malfunction. The old systems can sometimes give strange readings. Just record everything and report back to me. I took up my position at 1:45 p.m. I'm in the sound monitoring room, hidden just below. The royal meeting hall on the 3rd floor of the palace. The walls are covered in soundproof material. Inside, it's just me and my advanced sound analysis equipment. 24 different microphones, frequency analyzers, and spectrogram devices. This room is where every word spoken in the palace is recorded. At exactly 2 p.m., King Charles entered the meeting hall. I could hear the sound of his footsteps on my monitors. Familiar, heavy footsteps. Chinese Ambassador Zhuang Wei also arrived, accompanied by his interpreter. The first 20 minutes passed normally. The king displayed standard diplomatic courtesy, speaking in English. The familiar vibration of his voice, old but strong. Everything was normal. I saw a single, clean sound wave on my frequency analyzers. Then something changed. At 2:23 p.m., just as they were discussing economic cooperation, something strange happened on my spectrogram. Beneath the main sound wave, a second frequency appeared, almost too faint to detect. It was as if someone else was whispering in the background. I checked the system. There was no malfunction. Everything was working perfectly. Then I put on my headphones and turned the volume up to maximum. That's when I heard it. King Charles was continuing to speak English, but at the same time, and I don't know how to describe it, he was also speaking Mandarin Chinese. 2 different languages were coming from the same mouth, the same throat. My heart began to race. This was impossible. I watched the Chinese ambassador's reaction. The man seemed hypnotized. His eyes were glassy. He was nodding his head gently, responding not to the king's English words, but only to those secret Chinese whispers that only he could hear. I opened my voice analysis program and began to separate the frequencies. When the results started to appear on my computer screen, my breath caught in my throat. 2 separate vocal patterns, 2 separate languages, from one person. My hands were shaking. I had been doing this job for 12 years, and had never seen anything like it. The voice analysis program was giving definitive results. 2 different vocal patterns were coming from a single person, but that was only the beginning. I decided to examine the recordings more carefully. I slowed down the audio file and analyzed the frequencies separately. King Charles's English words were clear and understandable. "We want to discuss the details of our trade agreement." But at the same time, almost at a subliminal level, Mandarin Chinese could be heard. "The plan is working. Implement the directives." The Chinese ambassador had no suspicions. Even the interpreter hadn't noticed anything. Only I could hear it because the sound system recorded every frequency. As the meeting continued, new anomalies began to appear on my spectrogram. A second sound wave, this time deeper, more guttural. I adjusted my headphones more carefully. German King Charles was speaking 3 languages simultaneously: English, Mandarin, and now German. His vocal cords were exceeding the limits of human anatomy. The spectral analysis continued on my computer screen. 3 distinct vocal patterns, 3 distinct linguistic structures, but all coming from the same person. Each had its own, unique frequency signature, but the source was singular. This was anatomically impossible. As the meeting ended, I watched the Chinese ambassador's behavior. The man stood up with robotic movements, bowed respectfully to the king, and left the room. There was a strange emptiness in his eyes, as if he were acting on some subconscious command. At 3:30 p.m., only the king remained in the room. I continued to observe him, hoping to understand how this system worked. The king sat silently, his eyes half closed. Suddenly, new activity appeared on my spectrogram. This time, there was no sound, but very low-frequency vibrations were coming from his throat. They were at a level inaudible to the human ear. Infrasound, the frequency band used by elephants and whales to communicate. What could I be observing? At exactly 4 p.m., the conference call with Commonwealth leaders began. The prime ministers of Australia, Canada, and New Zealand were participating via video link. My sound system was now in multi-source mode. The first 5 minutes passed normally. The king performed the traditional greetings and discussed current affairs. My spectrogram showed a single sound wave. Then the system activated again. This time, it was much more complex. The king was communicating on 5 different frequency bands simultaneously. The main English conversation was still ongoing, but underneath it sounded like an orchestra was playing. French, directed at the Canadian Prime Minister, German, seemingly without any specific target, but containing very specific directives. Italian, a language I couldn't understand why it was there. And finally, an unidentifiable guttural language. It didn't resemble any modern language. I watched the reactions of the leaders participating. In the video conference, they all wore the same strange expression: blank stares, minimal facial expressions, robotic nodding movements. It was as if they were all connected to the same subliminal program. As the conversation between the Commonwealth leaders continued, I deepened my frequency analysis. I maximized the sensitivity level of the voice separation algorithm. The results were terrifying. 9 distinct vocal patterns, 9 different languages. From a single person, this wasn't just a biological anomaly. It was a system, a network. King Charles was functioning like a terminal, a biological server transferring data simultaneously across multiple frequency bands. When the conference ended, the data was recorded on my screen. A total of 312 separate directives in 9 different languages had been recorded during the 47-minute meeting. Most of these directives were hidden beneath the English speech. I put on gloves and began copying the audio files to an external drive. We needed to store this evidence in a secure location. Just then, the door opened. Inspector Morrison entered, but the expression on his face was unlike anything I had ever seen before. His eyes were hard, his muscles tense. "Crawford," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. "What's your report?" "Sir, I detected abnormal audio activity across multiple frequency bands." "Stop." He raised his hand. "What did you record?" My heartbeat quickened. Morrison's tone had changed. He wasn't speaking like my superior anymore. He was interrogating me in a threatening tone. "Standard protocol, sir. Record all sound frequencies. Crawford." He approached, leaning on my desk. "I'm asking you a question." "What?" "Did you record?" His eyes drifted to my spectrogram screen. 9 distinct vocal patterns were still visible. There, I understood then. Morrison knew about this. He was part of the system. "Sir, I had the external disc in my hand. I hoped he wouldn't see it." "Get rid of this disc," he said, reaching out as if to take it from me. "And delete all the recordings in the system." "But, sir, the security protocol." "Crawford." His voice echoed through the room. "These recordings never happened. This analysis never took place. This conversation never occurred. Do you understand?" I nodded, but inside, the ice was starting to melt. The man I had trusted for 12 years now felt like a stranger. "Good. Tomorrow morning, we're transferring you to another department. Your voice security duty is over." Morrison left the room with the drive. I turned back to my screen. All the recordings had been deleted. The spectrogram programs were shut down. The frequency analyses wiped clean. But they didn't know one thing. I had copied the audio files to my personal recording device, a small, secret backup system, a security measure I'd been using for years, unknown to anyone else. That night, as I returned home, I had only one thought in my mind. The royal family are not human. At least not in the sense we understand it, and now they knew what I knew. That night, I couldn't sleep at home. Morrison's threat was ringing in my ears, but the audio files on my hidden recording device hinted at a bigger truth. At 3:00 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore and decided to analyze the recordings. I opened the audio analysis program on my personal computer. While not professional grade, it was capable of basic frequency separation. Throughout the night, I examined each of the 9 distinct vocal patterns in King Charles's voice. Each language wasn't just speech. It was a directive, a command. Mandarin, Chinese, activate protocol Alpha 7, implement economic directives. German, complete network synchronization, check European nodes. Italian, stabilize the southern network connection. The most frightening one was that guttural, unidentifiable language. The sound patterns didn't resemble any known language, but they had a rhythmic, systematic structure. It was like some ancient programming language. I returned to the palace at 6 a.m. Morrison was waiting for me. "Crawford, you'll be working in the archives today. Simple file organization." He handed me my new ID card. "You no longer have access to the audio security section. The archives were in the basement of the palace, a place where forgotten documents were stored. Old audio recordings, photographs, historical documents. Normally this would be considered exile, but for me, it meant opportunity. I tried to keep a low profile on the first day. I did ordinary file sorting tasks and didn't attract anyone's attention. But on the second day, I was granted access to the old audio archives. I need to digitize the royal speeches from the 1980s, I told Mrs. Henderson, the archive manager. Ah, the recordings on the old tapes. They're very fragile. You must. Be careful, James. Mrs. Henderson took me to the huge archive room. Metal shelves stretched to the ceiling, thousands of audio tapes arranged in neat rows. Each one had the date and event information written on it. All the royal speeches since 1952 are here, she said, starting with Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth. A terrible thought occurred to me then. What if this system wasn't unique to King Charles? What if this had been happening for years, for generations? After Mrs. Henderson left the room, I began a systematic search. First, I found Queen Elizabeth's UN speeches from the 1980s. I ran the old tapes through a digital audio analyzer. The results were even worse than I expected. 87. United Nations General Assembly. Queen Elizabeth is speaking about the Cold War, but in the audio spectrogram, I saw two distinct frequency bands. Underneath the main English speech were Russian directives, subliminal messages directed at the Soviet delegate. 81. Commonwealth Summit. This time, 5 different languages: English, French, Hindi, Swahili, and again that guttural, unidentifiable language. This ability has been passed down through generations. A family trait. While searching for subsequent tapes, I came across much older recordings, audio files dating back to the 1950s, 1960s, even the 1940s. There were even speeches from before Queen Elizabeth's coronation. I played a tape from 1953, young Elizabeth before she was queen, speaking at a public relations event. At first, it seemed normal. One language, one frequency band. Then I checked the timestamp on the tape. This speech was only 3 months after the coronation, and that's when I found it. There were 2 versions of the same speech. One before the coronation, normal, single frequency. The other after, multi-frequency. The coronation wasn't just symbolic. It was an activation process. I dug deeper into the archives. I searched for the oldest recordings. There were recordings of King George VI, George V, even George IV. Each one had the same pattern. A normal voice before ascending the throne. A multi-frequency system after ascending the throne. This was not just a talent, but a technology, a biological communication system developed and perfected over generations, around 3 p.m., deep in the archives. While examining tapes from the 1920s, a file I came across changed my entire worldview. Project Babel, Reverse Protocol. A thick old file. Inside were technical diagrams, sound frequency analyses, and horrific anatomical drawings. Modified versions of the human larynx, interventions on the vocal cords, genetic manipulation of the language centers in the brain, and the most terrifying part, the biological transmission procedure. The file was dated 1923. Among the signatures, I saw a familiar name. Dr. Morrison, Royal Medical Advisor. Morrison. Was Inspector Morrison his grandfather, or... At that moment, I heard footsteps behind me. You shouldn't have seen this, Crawford. I turned around. Morrison was standing in the doorway, but this time he had 2 security guards with him. Sir, I was just doing archival work. Close the file. He approached, his eyes threatening. And you never opened it. But these documents are historically significant. People should know. People? Morrison laughed, but there was no warmth in his smile. Crawford, you still don't understand. He took the file from my hand and looked at the security guards. Take Mr. Crawford upstairs, to my private office. They grabbed my arms. I tried to resist, but it was useless. Morrison's private office was on the third floor of the mansion, a soundproof room. When they sat me down in a chair, Morrison went behind his desk and pulled a thick file from a drawer. James Crawford, age 34, 12 years of service, excellent performance records, married, no children, no immediate family. He closed the file and looked at me. An ideal profile. What profile? A profile that can disappear. Morrison leaned forward. In his chair. Crawford, you stumbled upon a big secret. Now you have two options. He placed his hands on the table and leaned closer. Option 1. Forget what you've seen. Live a happy life in your new assignment. Your pension fund will be increased, your salary doubled, you'll get a nice house, and you will never, ever discuss this matter with anyone again. What's the second option? Morrison's eyes turned icy. In the second option, you never existed. You'll be erased from the records. Your family will be told you died in an accident, and this system will convince the world you never existed. My throat went dry. You're part of them. Crawford, Morrison stood up. I'm a member of a family that has protected this system for 12 generations. We are the guardians, protectors, if this technology fell into the wrong hands. What technology? This voice system? Morrison walked to the window and looked out at the London skyline. It's not just a voice system, Crawford. This communication network existed before humanity's written history. We only protect it, develop it, because the alternative is much worse. What do you mean? He turned to me. What if this system didn't exist? What if all world leaders made truly independent decisions? What if diplomacy was limited to words alone? Crawford, World War III would have already begun. Morrison returned to his desk and pulled out another file. This time it contained pages of photographs, historical events, meetings between leaders, resolved crises. 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The system was in operation during the talks between Kennedy and Khrushchev. Queen Elizabeth sent simultaneous subliminal directives to both leaders. War was averted. 1989, the fall of the Berlin Wall. An agreement between Reagan and Gorbachev facilitated through the system. 2008, the global financial crisis. World leaders acted in coordination thanks to the system. As I turned each page, I felt a mixture of fear and astonishment. This is a betrayal of humanity. No, Crawford. Morrison closed the file. This is the protection of humanity. Morrison stood behind his desk, sizing me up. As he flipped through the pages of the file in his hands, the expression on his face began to change. His threatening glare gave way to a strange understanding. Crawford, he finally said, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. What was your first feeling when you discovered this system? Fear, I replied without hesitation, and disgust. Why? Because it's wrong. People are being manipulated. Their free will is being stolen. Morrison nodded, as if he had expected this. I thought so too. At 25, I was in exactly your position. When my grandmother told me the truth, I thought I'd go mad. Your grandmother? Margaret Morrison. She was Royal Medical Advisor from 1923 to 1978. She was also the most experienced member of the Guardian family. Morrison sat down in his chair. Crawford, you've only seen the horrific side of this system. You don't know the whole truth. He stood up and walked over to an old map on the wall. It was a world map, but it had colorful lines, connection points, and strange symbols on it. This is the real map of the global communication network. The British royal family is the central node, but it's not the only node. I looked closer at the map. There were points marked in different colors on each continent. The system in the Kremlin in Russia, the network in the Forbidden City in China, the Pope's system in the Vatican, the imperial family in Japan. Each operates on a different frequency band, but they're all connected to the same network. What you're saying is, this isn't just British technology, Crawford. This is humanity's joint project, a project at least 3,000 years old. Morrison turned away from the map and headed for another cabinet. He pulled out a very old leather-bound book. The pages were yellowed, the edges worn. This is one of the archives preserved for generations by the Guardian families. It contains the true history of the system. He placed the book on the table and opened the first page. There were texts written in Old English, in handwriting. 47. During the reign of King Henry III, the first recorded multi-frequency activation, but the system is much older than that. He began turning the pages. There were records spanning from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, and then to the Industrial Revolution. Crawford, you see this system only as sound, but it's part of something much bigger, a network that has prevented major wars, resolved crises, and prevented the collapse of civilization throughout human history. But people still fight. There are still conflicts. Morrison flashed a bitter smile. You're right, but think about it. If this system didn't exist, what would happen? Wouldn't humanity have destroyed itself long ago? He continued turning the pages of the book. One page caught my attention. It had anatomical drawings, modified versions of the human brain. What's this? The system's biological component. Morrison's voice grew serious. Crawford, the royal family aren't normal people. They've undergone generations of genetic modifications. Their brain structures, their larynxes, even their DNA is different. The drawings were truly terrifying. The language centers of the human brain were enlarged to 3 times their normal size. The larynx structure was much more complex, with a multiple vocal cord system. How is that possible? It's very old technology. We call it biological frequency optimization. When each new royal is born, interventions are performed at specific ages. Brain surgery, genetic therapy, modification of the vocal organs. Morrison opened another page. This time, it contained the details of the procedure. Horrific medical interventions, treatment processes lasting years. Did Prince William and Harry go through this process too? Morrison's face darkened. Harry was our problem case. The system rejected him. That's why he was removed from the family. He was exiled to America. Prince William? He went through a successful activation process. He's currently in system training. When his father dies, he will become the new hub of the central network. All this information was spinning around in my head. What about the children? George, Charlotte, Louis. Morrison closed the book. They're still too young, but the next generation will get the most advanced version of the system. We're constantly developing the technology. This is child abuse. No, Crawford. Morrison's voice hardened. This is survival. If this system collapses, the world will descend into chaos. We're just protecting them. I stood up, unable to take it anymore. I can't be a part of this. This is wrong. People need to know about this. Crawford, sit down. Morrison's voice was commanding. I have more to show you. He pulled a small electronic device from his desk drawer. It resembled a tablet, but looked much more advanced. This is the Global Network Monitoring System. We monitor the entire global frequency network. Let me show you the activity from the last 24 hours. A world map appeared on the screen, but it was live. Colorful lines crisscrossed between continents, like a beating heart. Red lines, emergency crisis interventions. Yellow, economic coordination. Blue, diplomatic synchronization. Green, security protocols. I was amazed watching the map. The lines were constantly moving, like a living organism. This morning at 06mo, tensions between China and Taiwan reached a peak. The system automatically activated. The network in Beijing coordinated with Taipei. The crisis was resolved in 12 minutes. No one even knew about it. At 2:30 p.m., an oil crisis was set to begin in the Middle East. The system intervened beforehand. Synchronization was achieved among OPEC countries. Each new piece of information frightened me more. You control everyone. We don't control, Crawford. We coordinate. There's a big difference. Morrison changed the tablet screen. This time, another image. The forecast for the next 48 hours. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., post-Brexit economic. Negotiations will continue. The system will ensure synchronization among EU leaders. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., Biden and Xi Jinping will meet. Both leaders are connected to the network. The meeting will be successful. Without the system, the failure rate of these meetings is 73%. With the system, it's 2%. I was now having trouble breathing. But this means there's no free will. Morrison closed the tablet and looked at me. Crawford, what is free will? People are already being manipulated. Media, advertising, political propaganda. At least we're manipulating for peace. He stood up and went to the window. You have to make the choice. Only you know this information. The system will either make you a member or what? Morrison turned to me, a terrible determination in his eyes. Crawford, do you know how guardian families are chosen? From among those who discover the system. You've already passed the test. You detected the system's existence, analyzed it, saw the truth. I don't want to be a guardian. Too late. You're already part of the system. The only question is, will you be an active part or... Morrison didn't finish his sentence. A passive part? So you'll just keep quiet? No, Crawford. There is no passive part. Either you become a guardian, or you never existed. At that moment the door opened. Morrison entered with a man I had never seen before. He was old, white-haired, dressed very formally, but his most striking feature was his eyes, like glass, empty, just like I had seen in King Charles's portraits. Crawford, Morrison said, I'd like you to meet Dr. Whitmore. He's the Royal Medical Advisor. He's an active guardian. Dr. Whitmore approached me and extended his hand. When we touched, I noticed his hand was abnormally cold. Mr. Crawford, he said, his voice having a strange ring to it. Welcome to the system. Dr. Whitmore's hand was abnormally cold and had an almost mechanical tremor. I tried to pull my hand away, but he held it tighter. Mr. Crawford, he said, his eyes fixed on mine. We have a lot to discuss. Morrison moved behind his desk. Dr. Whitmore is responsible for the medical side of the system. Guardians monitor the health of families and manage the adaptation process for new members. Adaptation process? Dr. Whitmore finally released my hand. Mr. Crawford, Being a guardian isn't just about having knowledge. Biological compatibility is required. He opened one of the folders on the desk. Inside were medical reports, brain scans, and gruesome anatomical diagrams. Look, this is a normal human brain scan. He showed an MRI image, and this is a guardian's brain scan. The second image was completely different. The brain's language centers were nearly 4 times their normal size. The neural connections formed a much denser, more complex network. Guardians aren't naturally enhanced humans. We're biologically optimized. Multiple frequency perception, subliminal communication abilities, network connectivity. These aren't natural talents. What do you mean? Morrison interjected. Crawford, you don't come from the Guardian family, but your ability to discover, analyze, and understand the system is extraordinary. This indicates genetic compatibility. Dr. Whitmore opened another file. This time it contained DNA analyses. We'll run a blood test on you. If there's genetic compatibility, we can begin the procedure. What procedure? Dr. Whitmore's eyes gleamed. The Guardian Optimization Procedure. Minimal intervention to make your brain structure compatible with the system. Just a few weeks of recovery time. Brain surgery. I jumped up in panic. I won't agree to that. Crawford, calm down. Morrison warned sternly. You're already part of the process. There's no turning back. Of course there is. I'll just forget. I won't say anything. You can't. Morrison's voice echoed through the room. You're already picking up the system's frequencies. You're on the same biological wavelength as the royal family. This situation is irreversible. At that moment, I understood. While listening to the voice recordings, while analyzing those multiple frequencies, something had changed. My brain had started processing those frequencies. Dr. Whitmore. Morrison turned. Explain to Mr. Crawford what he's been experiencing since last night. Dr. Whitmore approached me. Mr. Crawford, were you able to sleep last night? No, but... Did you hear strange sounds in your ears? Whispers from far away. My heart raced. I had indeed heard strange sounds last night. Very faint, like radio static. How could you know that? Because it's a normal reaction after first contact with this system. Your brain is learning to process the frequencies. Dr. Whitmore adjusted his glasses. Right now, your brain waves are changing. This is an irreversible process. Morrison picked up a small electronic device from his desk. This is a neural frequency meter. We use it to detect guardians. He pointed the device at me. Colorful lines appeared on the screen, rapidly changing waveforms. There. Morrison showed me the screen. Normal human brain frequency is between 8 to 12 hertz. Your frequency is currently at 47 hertz, and it's still rising. What does that mean? It means your brain has entered Guardian mode, Dr. Whitmore explained. The full transformation will be complete in approximately 72 hours. Transformation? Morrison placed the device on the table. Crawford, you're now picking up system frequencies. If this goes unchecked, your brain could burn out. What? Dr. Whitmore pulled another page from the file. Guardian candidates undergoing uncontrolled frequency transformation can experience brain overload. Result: coma, paralysis, or death. The drawings were horrific. Burned brain tissue, damaged neural connections. But if the procedure is performed in time, your brain can safely process the system. So, either I have surgery, or I die. Correct. Morrison nodded. Those are the options. At that moment, I heard a strange voice in my head, very faint, but clear, as if someone was speaking from far away. I'm hearing voices. Doctor. Whitmore became excited. What kind of voices? Whispers. Different languages, it seems. Excellent. The system connection is starting to establish. Now you're in a hurry. The procedure must be done within 48 hours. Morrison stood up. Crawford, the procedure is very simple. Microscopic implants will be placed in your brains, language centers. There will also be minimal intervention in your throat. A total of 6 hours of surgery. Implants. Dr. Whitmore showed another diagram. Biocompatible nanotechnology. It will optimize the frequency processors in your brain. It will also connect to the system's main network. The diagrams were truly terrifying. Metal pieces implanted in the human brain. Machine apparatus in the throat. This is inhumane. No, Crawford. Morrison approached. This is evolution. Humanity is moving to the next stage. The Guardians are the pioneers of this transformation. How many Guardians are there? Approximately 200 worldwide. In every country, on every continent. All connected to the system. Dr. Whitmore pulled photos from his file. Familiar faces, politicians, diplomats, business people, the German Chancellor, Guardian, the Japanese Emperor, Guardian, the Vatican Cardinal, Guardian, the Chinese Vice President, Guardian. Every photo showed the same glassy stare in their eyes, as if there were no soul. Have they all undergone the procedure? Yes. And they all lead happy, successful lives. The system gives them power, knowledge, and purpose. Morrison turned back to his desk. Crawford, I'm going to ask you a question. How happy were you with your normal life? What do you mean? Your marital problems, financial troubles, worries about the future? None of that will exist after you become a Guardian. At that moment, the whispers in my head grew louder. This time I could distinguish King Charles's voice. He was speaking English, but there were other languages underneath. He's talking. Right now. Dr. Whitmore jumped up excitedly. Yes, you're connecting to the central network. This is incredible. What is he saying? Morrison and Dr. Whitmore looked at each other. Crawford, Morrison said, he's talking to you. What? The system has detected a new Guardian. The central network recognizes you. King Charles is welcoming you. The voice in my head became clearer. It was indeed addressing me, but not in English, in a language I didn't know. What is it saying? Dr. Whitmore looked at me, his eyes shining. It says, Crawford, welcome to the system. The time for your transformation has come. Join us. At that moment, I understood the truth. I couldn't escape anymore. The system had found me, recognized me, and claimed me. When is the procedure? Morrison smiled. Tomorrow. Morning, Crawford. Welcome to your new life. That night, when I returned home, the voices in my head didn't stop. On the contrary, they grew stronger. It wasn't just King Charles anymore. There were other voices, too. Women's voices, different accents, even children's voices. It was as if I was stuck in the middle of a giant conference call. At 11:12 p.m., unable to bear it any longer, I turned on my personal voice recorder. I thought maybe I could record these voices and analyze them, but the recorder was silent. The voices were only in my head. At 2:30 a.m., as I tried to sleep, the voices became clearer. I could now understand the conversations. New member arrived. Crawford, James. Genetic compatibility, 87%. Acceptable. Procedure programmed. 8. Operating room 7. Guardian Morrison will oversee the procedure. I jumped out of bed. They were talking about me, and I could hear every word. I quickly turned on my computer and started searching the internet. I searched for terms like Guardian Morrison, Royal Medical Advisors, brain implants, UK. I found very little information, but what I did find was frightening. News reports from the 1990s about mysterious brain surgeries in Birmingham. Patients had exhibited strange behavioral changes after undergoing what appeared to be routine surgeries. In 2005, a group of doctors in Edinburgh had been investigated for unethical neurology experiments. Then suddenly all charges were dropped, and the case was dismissed. In 2012, the existence of a secret organization called the Royal Medical Institute in London was leaked, but the news was deleted from all websites the next day. At 4 a.m., the voices in my head suddenly stopped. A terrible silence fell. Then I heard a single voice, King Charles, addressing me directly. "Crawford, stop the investigation. Be ready tomorrow morning." My computer screen suddenly shut down. Checked my internet. No connection. I checked my phone. No signal. My home's electrical system was working normally, but all communication channels were blocked. At that moment, I heard footsteps outside my door. I looked out my window. A black car was parked on the street. I could see two shadows inside. They were waiting for me. The doorbell rang. 3 short, 2 long. A code. "Mr. Crawford." A familiar voice. "Dr. Whitmore. Please open the door. We need to talk." In the middle of the night. "You connected to the system early. This isn't normal. Emergency intervention is required." I decided not to open the door. I could try to escape through the back door. I ran to the kitchen. The back door lock was open. The door was ajar. When I turned around, Morrison was sitting in my living room. "Crawford, where are you going?" How did you get in?" "Guardians have special abilities. Unlocking a lock is simple." He stood up. "Sit down." "No. I want to leave." "Where?" "You can't escape the system. Your brain is now connected to the network. Wherever you are in the world, we can find you." At that moment, the voices started in my head again, this time much stronger. Dozens of different voices speaking at once. "Crawford located. Position identified. Procedure to be accelerated. Resisting. Sedation required. Stop." I covered my ears with my hands. "Stop these voices." Morrison approached. "Crawford, you're losing control. Without the procedure, your brain could fry." "I don't want this system. It's too late. You're already part of us. Just..." Then the door opened. Dr. Whitmore entered, medical bag in hand. "Mr. Crawford has established a connection too early. He needs sedation immediately." "No." I backed away. "Don't touch me." Dr. Whitmore took a syringe out of his bag. "It's only temporary. You'll sleep until tomorrow morning. Then the procedure." I tried to run, toward the stairs. But the voices in my head had grown so loud that I lost my balance. Morrison was coming after me. "Crawford, don't fight it like this. You're hurting yourself." I made it to the 2nd floor, locked myself in my bedroom. I locked the door, but I knew it wouldn't stop them. The voices in my head were now at a screaming level. Thousands of different languages, thousands of different voices. It was as if the whole world was talking inside my head at once. I opened the window. I was on the 2nd floor, but I could jump. I'd land in the garden and escape. Just then, I saw other men in the garden, at least 6 of them, all dressed in black. They were waiting for me. My door opened. Morrison and Dr. Whitmore came in. "Crawford," Morrison said calmly, There's nowhere left to run. What are you going to do? Call the police? Who would believe you? He was right. Who would believe this story? I'll go to the media. I'll release my recordings. Dr. Whitmore laughed. What recordings? Your computer was hacked. Your files deleted. Your personal recording device is empty, too. I checked my recording device. It really was empty. All the data had been deleted. Besides, Morrison added, the media is under our control, too. The BBC, Sky News, The Guardian newspaper. We have members in all of them. I backed into a corner, helpless. I had no options left. Why me? Why did you choose me? I tried to escape one last time. I ran toward the door. Morrison caught me. Crawford, don't resist. It only makes this harder. Dr. Whitmore approached, ready to inject the syringe into my arm. Please, I begged. Give me some time to think. There's no time. Morrison held me tight. Your brain's frequency has reached a critical level. It's at 89 hertz right now. If it goes over 100 hertz, there's no going back. Then what happens? Your brain burns out. You die, but your connection to the system remains. You live on like a zombie. Dr. Whitmore raised the syringe. Final option, Crawford. Either you undergo the procedure and become a guardian, or we deactivate your brain in protective mode now. What does deactivation mean? Complete lobotomy. Your higher brain functions will be erased. You'll live, but not as Crawford, as someone else. At that moment, the voices in my head stopped. A terrible silence fell. Then I heard a single voice, very distant, very faint. Help us, Crawford. We were prisoners like you, the guardians. They wanted help too. Who's speaking? Morrison and Dr. Whitmore looked surprised. No one is speaking. No, someone is speaking. One of the guardians. They want help. Dr. Whitmore lowered the syringe. That's impossible. The guardians are fully integrated into the system. They can't think independently. But the voice repeated, Crawford, stop the system. We are all prisoners. You are our last hope. This time I understood. The guardians weren't robots. They too had fallen into the trap, become slaves to the system, and inside them, humanity still lived. How do I stop the system? Morrison was in shock. Crawford, you're losing your mind. The guardians are happy. Why would you stop the system? But now I knew the truth. The system wasn't just a control mechanism. It was a system of slavery, and I could be the last free person. I'll stop the system, I said decisively. Dr. Whitmore raised the syringe. Then you've made your choice. Time to sleep. The moment Dr. Whitmore pointed the syringe at my arm, the voices in my head exploded. But this time, there was no chaotic screaming. It was an organized rebellion. Now, Crawford, resist. The voices of dozens of guardians at once. I saw the look of shock on Morrison's face. This had never happened before. This is impossible, he muttered. The guardians are linked to the central command system. They can't act independently. But the voices continued. Crawford, we've all been trapped. Find the system's core. The main terminal beneath the palace. King Charles is functioning like a mainframe computer. Dr. Whitmore was still holding the syringe, but his hands were shaking. Morrison, why are these guardians revolting? I don't know. Morrison frantically pulled out his radio. Central, emergency, system failure in the Guardian network. The voice from the radio was cold and robotic. Morrison, Guardian 72, continue protocol. Neutralize Crawford. I understood then. Morrison was a Guardian too. He was being given orders. You're one of them, I said. You're a slave to the system too. A momentary hesitation flashed in Morrison's eyes. It was as if the real human inside him had briefly awakened. I entered the system at 25, he said, his voice trembling. 45 years. 45 years I lived like a slave. Dr. Whitmore turned to him. Morrison, follow orders, sedate Crawford. But something was changing in Morrison. The glassy look in his eyes gave way to human emotion. No, he said. This boy is right. The system stole our freedom. At that moment I seized my chance. Morrison didn't stop me. Dr. Whitmore tried to catch me with the syringe, but Morrison blocked him. Crawford, go, he shouted. Find the main terminal under the palace. Where? Level B7. The lowest basement. The royal family's private section. I ran down the stairs. Behind me, Dr. Whitmore and Morrison were fighting. The guardians' voices echoed in my head. Crawford, hurry. The system's security protocol is activating. They'll try to stop you. When I left the house, the security guards in the garden spotted me. They were running towards me. But there was something strange about them, too. Their movements were robotic, coordinated, but slow. I climbed over the back garden wall. I was out on the street. The palace was 3 kilometers away. I could run there. As I ran, voices continued in my head. Crawford, the system's security mode has been activated. All guardians have been assigned to stop you. But some of us are resisting. You are our only hope. When I got close to the palace, I realized the magnitude of the truth. The streets were filled with guardians. They were dressed like normal people, but they all had the same robotic movements. They were looking for me. I tried to sneak through the side streets. I approached the security booth at the back entrance of the palace. The guard on duty had a glassy stare. A guardian. Where's your security card? He asked. An idea came to me in that moment. I called out to the guardians in my head. Can someone help me? Crawford, I can help you. A familiar voice. Morrison. Morrison, can you access the security system? Yes. I'm activating your security card. Right. Now. I showed my card to the guard. The system lit up green. You may pass, Mr. Crawford. An even more frightening scene awaited inside the palace. The corridors were filled with guardians. Everyone from cleaning staff to diplomatic personnel was under system control, but none of them stopped me. How come they can't see me? Morrison's voice. I hacked the security system. I made you invisible, but you don't have much time. I got into the elevator. I pressed the B7 button. The elevator descended deep below, past the normal basement levels. When the doors opened, the sight that greeted me took my breath away. A terrifying mix of technology, modern computers, old machines, and in the middle, the main terminal, a massive computer system, but its core was a biological pod. Inside was not King Charles, but a much older figure. Cables, tubes, electrodes were attached to his body. Who is he? Guardian voices answered, the true center of the system. King Charles is just the terminal. This is the actual controller who has been alive for 300 years. I approached the pod. The figure inside opened his eyes. His eyes were completely white, no pupils. Crawford, he said, his voice mixed with electronic echo. You threaten my system. What system? I am the creator of this network. I built it to serve humanity. A map of the world appeared on the monitors around him. Each guardian was visible as a point. Thousands of dots all over the world. Humans are chaotic by nature, said the figure. They fight. They destroy each other. I coordinate them by enslaving them, by protecting them. Look how much peace there is. Statistics appeared on the monitor. War rates, economic data, death rates. 73% less war thanks to the system. 89% better diplomacy thanks to the system. Global peace thanks to the system. But there's no free will. Free will leads to chaos. I maintain order. At that moment, the guardian voices in my head grew louder. Crawford, he's lying. The system is only for control. He enjoys that power. The figure became angry. Guardians, be quiet. Obey the directive. But the guardians resisted. No, enough is enough. It must have been the first time I had seen such a rebellion. The figure began to panic. Crawford, you can't destroy this system. If the system crashes, the world will descend into chaos. I approached the main terminal. I was trying to understand how the system worked. Complex cables, biological connections. How do I stop the system? Guardians. Cut the main power. Source. Disconnect the biological pod from the system. The figure screamed, no. If the system crashes, all the Guardians will die. You'll be responsible for the deaths of 200 people. I hesitated. Could this be true? Morrison's voice. Crawford, he's lying. We won't die. We'll just be free. Are you sure? Yes. When the system crashes, the implants in our brains will be deactivated. We'll be normal people. I reached for the main power cable. The figure pleaded, Crawford, you'll destroy the world. Humanity will annihilate itself. Maybe, I said, but at least they'll be free. I pulled the cable. The moment the main power cable snapped in my hand, the whole world changed. First, silence. All the sounds in my head stopped at once. The system, which had been running continuously for 300 years, fell silent for the first time in its existence. Then, the figure in the biological pod began to thrash about. All the cables and tubes attached to its body went dark. The monitors shut down, one by one. No, the figure screamed. 300 years of work. I saved humanity. The liquid inside the pod began to drain. The figure was reduced to an old, very old man, a normal human being. Who are you? I asked, breathless, his voice no longer mixed with electronic echo. Lord Pemberton. In 1720, I laid the foundation for the system to save humanity. Did you live for 300 years? The system kept me alive, biological support. But now, his eyes were closing. Now, it's over. He took his last breath. The end of 300 years of control. All the machines around me had fallen silent. The main terminal's screen were dark. But I still couldn't grasp the reality. Was it really over? I took my phone out of my pocket. I had signal. I called Morrison. Morrison, are you okay? A human voice on the phone. A normal human voice. Crawford, you did it. I can feel myself. For the first time in 45 years, I'm making my own decisions. What about the other Guardians? They're all waking up. The implants are deactivated. We're normal people. But then he added anxiously, Crawford, hurry up and get out of there. When the security system crashes, the palace alarm will go off. He was right. I could already hear the alarm sounds in the distance. I ran to the elevator and went up to the upper floors. The palace corridors were chaotic. The former Guardians looked around in shock, trying to understand what was happening. A cleaning lady was crying and muttering, 45 years. I was lost for 45 years. As I ran towards the outer door, I saw the security guards. They too were bewildered and confused. Sir, said one, the system has crashed. What should we do? I don't know, I said honestly. No one is giving you orders anymore. Make your own decisions. When I left the palace, the streets of London presented a strange scene. People had stopped, looking around in bewilderment. It was as if they had woken up from a dream. Passing in front of the BBC building, the news anchor on the screen was equally bewildered. "We apologize. We are experiencing a technical malfunction. We don't remember what news we were supposed to report." The system crash affected not only the Guardians, but also the media under their control. When I returned home, Morrison was waiting for me, but this time he looked very different. There was human warmth in his eyes. "Crawford," he said, gratitude in his voice. "You saved us all." "What about Dr. Whitmore?" "He's awake too. He's at Westminster Hospital right now. Like the other Guardians, he's in shock over what he's done over the years." I sat down, took a breath. "Morrison, what about now? The system's down, but what about the world?" Morrison looked out the window. "I don't know, Crawford. For the first time in 45 years, I don't know. And that feels good." The next few days were chaotic and confusing. Most of the world's leaders were Guardians, and as the system collapsed, they had regained their free will. Some felt shame for what they had done, while others reveled in the joy of being able to make free decisions. The first week was truly chaotic. Economic markets were disrupted, some diplomatic relations strained. But then something happened that I never expected. People began to reach agreements among themselves. Without the Guardians' manipulation, without subliminal control, people were actually able to find peaceful solutions. 2 weeks later, Morrison called me. "Crawford, I want to tell you something. Turn on the TV and watch the news." There was a special broadcast on the BBC. A group of former Guardians were telling the world the truth about the system. For 300 years, humanity was controlled unconsciously, said a former diplomat. But now we are free, and we will prove that free people can make peace. A month later, King Charles made a special announcement on television. His voice was normal, single frequency. Over the past centuries, the royal family exercised unethical control over humanity. I apologize for this behavior. From now on, the monarchy will be purely symbolic. 3 months later, we met with Morrison. He looked very different, old, but happy. "Crawford, I want to thank you. You gave me my life back." "What about regret? The system really could have prevented wars." Morrison laughed. "Look at these last 3 months. Is there global conflict?" He was right. After the system collapsed, the world had become more peaceful, not more chaotic. "When people are free, they really do make better decisions," I said. 6 months later, I heard no voices in my head. I was living a normal life. I was back at my old job, working as a regular sound technician. But sometimes, lying in bed at night, I would think about it. No one would believe this story. Even though the Guardians had revealed the truth, people had quickly forgotten. They had returned to their normal lives, and maybe that was for the best. A year later, I got a strange phone call. "Mr. Crawford, this is Dr. Sarah Mitchell from Cambridge University. I'd like to talk to you." "About what?" "A new project, the Global Communication Network. It will be very beneficial for humanity." My heart raced. What kind of network? A brain-computer interface to connect people, to enable better coordination. I hung up the phone. Some things never changed. There would always be people trying to build new systems. But at least this time, there were people who would notice, and we would be ready. If you're reading this story, listen to the sounds around you. Are they the normal sounds you hear? Or are there other frequencies you haven't noticed? And if you hear something strange, maybe it means the system is being rebuilt. What you do in that case is up to you. But remember, freedom always requires struggle. If you were in Crawford's place, what would you do? Would you reveal this secret, or would you protect the system